Amazon is known as one of the hotspots when it comes to budget mechanical keyboards. Odds are, if you've at least looked into buying your first mechanical keyboard, you might have gone straight to Amazon, as most people do for a lot of products. And with good reason. Amazon has some decent stuff, especially if you're kind of dipping your toes into mechanical keyboards and you don't quite know what you're getting into, which is a lot. It's a doozy. But if that happens, you go on Amazon and there's just so many keyboards that look like this, and it's like, which one do I get? Well, a brand new company has come to make that decision a little bit more difficult, or maybe a little bit more easy. This is the NB681 Nimbleback keyboard from LTC. It's a 68 key, 65% keyboard that is hot swappable with 3 and 5 pin switches. The price, the form factor, and the fact that it's hot swap make this a very exciting little keyboard, especially if you're more of a budget mechanical keyboard kind of person and you want to experiment with customizing your keyboard. And we're going to get into all of that in this review. Just stick around. But even if you don't want to customize it, you just want to buy it and use it, how good is it out of the box? Inside the box, you get the keyboard, a manual, a keycap/switch puller combo, which I love, a USB Type-C cable, and a couple extra switches. It's available with red, brown, and blue switches. At first, I thought they were Gateron, but then I realized they're not. They're actually from a company called Huano. At least I think that's what it says on the switch itself. And if I'm honest, these linear reds are very scratchy. But we'll get into that. As for the rest of the board, you have a Nimbleback logo in the front of the board, 2 pop-out legs in the bottom, and at the top you actually have 3 USB ports. You have the USB-C port for plugging the keyboard into your computer, and you have 2 USB-A 2.0 ports, which can be used as USB pass-throughs for things like wireless mice, dongles, things like that. It doesn't work for data. I tried plugging in one of my external hard drives through this. The computer recognized something was being plugged in, but it didn't actually detect a hard drive had been plugged in. So your best use case for those ports is probably going to be something like mice, wireless mice dongles, things like that. I plugged in 2 wireless mice dongles, one for my MX Master 3 and one for my Razer Orochi V2. They were both plugged into the keyboard and they worked at the same time. I was able to change between them. It's really great if you don't want to have like a USB hub or something to have those dongles just on your desk. It's a nice little shortcut to kind of keep everything together in one little package. However, the ports are a little tight. I felt like I really had to push to get those dongles in there. It didn't seem like it was going to break, but it seems like it could be a problem. And for short little dongles like these, it is admittedly a little scary to kind of wiggle them back and forth to jimmy it out of the port. Yeah, just be careful. The Z, X, and C keys have these little, what look like camera icons on them. Turns out those are for macros. You can set macros to each of those 3 keys, all programmable on the keyboard itself. Or, as I would recommend, you can download the software, which I'll link in the description, assuming I remember to do that. I usually forget. What's really impressive is the fact that you can use the software to customize what all the keys on the keyboard do. Say maybe you're not using these page up and page down keys up in the corner, you can change those to behave like another key, or you can even change them to things like media control. I changed mine to volume up and down, for example, or you can even set it to various shortcuts like opening certain Windows functions, opening websites, opening programs, and so on. It's actually pretty cool. All you have to do is right click the key that you want to change and then make the change you want and click application. Pretty sure they meant apply, but just click that and it's done. You can also change the lighting from a list of preset effects, adjusting speed and brightness, and even changing to all one particular color if you want, all of which can also be done on the board if you don't want to download or use the software. All of the RGB looks really nice and bright and colorful. I always like when RGB is done well. I'd say if you're gonna do RGB, make it at least look nice, which not every board succeeds in doing. And it shines through the keycaps quite nicely. The keycaps are double-shot ABS OEM profile, as to be expected with a lot of these budget gaming keyboards. They're very thin and they don't sound amazing, but they'll do the job of being a keycap. One thing I really gotta commend LTC for doing with their first board is the form factor. It uses a bit of a non-traditional 65% layout with your insert, page up, page down, and delete keys all being sectioned into their own little square off to the side, and the arrow keys also being separate. This kind of little gap between the arrow keys and the control is actually something that's gained some popularity in the custom market. You see boards like the KBD67 Lite and the Portico from the Key Company all having this little gap, and you wouldn't think it's a big deal, but it's a nice little inclusion because having the little separation from the left arrow and the control makes it a little bit easier to feel where exactly you're hitting on the keyboard without looking at it. If you want to replace the keycaps though, keep in mind that the right shift and the right alt key are both smaller sizes than your traditional standard layout, with the right shift being 1.75U and the right alt being 1U. Looking at this layout, the two keys probably could have actually fit in their standard size and then still had that little bit of a gap between the arrow keys and whatnot, and it would have made replacing these keycaps way easier with any set you want to go out there and buy. You might be somebody who also would just buy some $20 keycaps on Amazon. Most of those sets though are not going to have the keys to replace those two keycaps. So you win some, you lose some. It happens. Fortunately, Amazon does have more keycap sets these days, ranging from the $30 to $40 range that do have keys that will fit those, but that's a subject for another video that maybe I can cover in, the future. If you want me to, let me know. I do like that the font and the double shot on the keycaps is at least nice. It's not gamery, which they could have easily done. I'm not a fan of the keycaps as far as the material and the thinness and whatnot, but they're definitely not the worst stock keycaps. I think they look really good, so at least I'll give them that. So with all that said, this is a $60 Amazon keyboard, the first from a new company. So how does it sound? Well, that doesn't sound very good at all now, does it? Kind of sounds like a $60 Amazon keyboard. But therein lies the potential with this bad boy. With this keyboard being hot swappable with the right tools and the right know-how and patience and time, we can make this little $60 keyboard sound like a keyboard that's worth at least twice as much. So that's cool. I am going to do my best to link everything I'm going to be using here in the description, and it's all going to be affiliate links, so if you feel so inclined to help support the channel, there you go. This is not going to be a tutorial exactly. I'm not going to run through all the steps and try to teach you. There's plenty of better people out there for that. Trust me, I'm not very good at modding these things yet, but I'm learning. So first off, the stabilizers. I'm not going to lie, they're pretty bad. They do what stabilizers are meant to do, but it just sounds like someone shaking a giant can full of tiny chainsaws. That's just my opinion. It's just what I hear in my ear. I'm not going to replace the stabs because I want to keep things as stock as possible in case maybe you're looking at this board and you too want to mod it, but you don't want to throw all this money at it that makes it a much more expensive investment. You are going to have to spend a little bit of money, but I don't want to break the bank for you. As for the switches, remember like 30 seconds ago when I said I wanted to keep things as stock as possible? I'm not going to replace the stabs because I want to keep things as stock as possible. Well, I lied. I'm going to take these completely out and replace them with tangerine switches, which are some more expensive linear switches from the Key Company. They are not readily available. They're not available for purchase, at least at the time of recording this, and they're not budget friendly. Buying enough to fill this keyboard will cost you at least around $48. So why am I using them? Well, because I've already got them filmed and lubed with Crytox 205 Grade 0, and I'm pressed for time, so deal with it. If you at least get the red switch version and lube the switches, or buy any other linear switches and lube them, you're probably going to get at least a similar idea of what it's going to sound like, so it's not a huge deal. It's fine. First, we're going to pop out the stabs and take these little ends out. Hopefully my camera got those well enough in focus. Those little legs pointing out right there, they actually make contact with the PCB and can contribute to stabilizer rattle quite a bit. If you've ever looked into modding stabilizers or watch a stabilizer modding tutorial, odds are the person that you're watching is going to tell you to cut off these legs. In fact, some stabilizers even come with them pre-removed, so that's cool. I have for the most part done my best to clean off the stock lube from the actual stabilizer housing, and and I'm just going to hit it with a bit of Crytox 205 grade 0. I just dab a little bit on both sides and then spread it as evenly as possible. Then for the wire, since I'm low on Crytox at the moment, I'm just going to use some of this dielectric grease and go ahead and kind of just dip the wire in there. Look at that. Isn't that all nice and pristine looking? And lastly, I'm gonna Band-Aid mod. I lied again because it's not actual Band-Aids. It's actually some of these leftover pre-cut stabilizer pads from some other builds and stabilizers that I've purchased, simply because they're here and I hate cutting and peeling tiny strips of Band-Aid. It's one of the most infuriating things to me when it comes to modding keyboards, and so that's why I have these. If you don't know what Band-Aid modding is, it's basically what I'm doing here, but literally with pieces of Band-Aid. You take a Band-Aid, cut it down to size, peel it, you put it on the board, and there it is. There's a ton of tutorials out there, and I'm not a great example, so look it up if you're curious or want to try it yourself. Okay, the stabs are lubed, clipped, and Band-Aid modded. Let's give them a listen. Yeah, they're just not very good stabilizers. If you can get better plate mount stabilizers, like maybe Durock plate mount stabilizers, they should be better. Should. Back to the switches, here's a quick comparison of the stock switches compared to the lubed and filmed Tangerine switches using the stock keycaps. I won't lie, the keycaps are probably contributing to what I dislike about the sound profile. They sound thin, and it makes the board sound even more hollow than it might already be, and I just don't like thin keycaps. If it sounds good to you, you could stop right there and just put on all the keycaps and enjoy your modded budget keyboard. But as for me, I'm gonna throw on these HK Gaming keycaps. These are the chalk color variant, they're cherry profile, die subbed, PBT, and they're much thicker than the stock keycaps. I'm not super happy to recommend HK Gaming these days, as I've heard some things about their business practices. They also very blatantly rip off actual designs of keycaps from like GMK, like actual artists who design those keycaps. But as of recording, this is the only cherry profile set that I have that will fit this layout and that I haven't covered or plan to cover in a future video. At the end of the day, if you just want keycaps for your keyboard and aren't worried about all of that, you just, you're like, here's my money, give me the thing, and I'll move on with my day. Keycaps are keycaps. I'm still gonna link them in the description if you want to check them out. Now let's just add the spacebar, flip spacebar, gang what up, and let's give it a listen. Now that sounds much better. Again, it's far from perfect, the board still sounds a little hollow and those stabs just really are not great, but it's a $60 Amazon keyboard. It does sound hollow and you could likely get some dampening foam and open up the case and put some in there to help with that. I'm not going to, only because I'm fairly certain the screws to do so are located somewhere underneath the rubber pads. Actually, turns out no, the white part in the frame on the top, you can actually just pop that right off. No tools necessary, just your fingertips, you just take it off, and it's pretty easy. It doesn't break as long as you're careful and just snaps right back on. So yeah, that turns out that's how that works. Anyway. And I just don't want to take those off or tear this thing apart too much, nor do I want to encourage you to do anything that might void the warranty. These other mods should not void the warranty and should be very easy without completely taking the board apart. Overall though, I think this board is a really solid first try with a lot of potential. Even if you don't care too much about the sound and you just want a decent 65% gaming keyboard with nice RGB and it's under $100, like almost half of that, there's a lot to look at here. When I look at this board, I see potential. The potential for what it could be if you mod it and take the right time to make it sound really good, better than I made it sound, as well as the potential for LTC and any other future products that they might have in store for us. It's cheaper and has, at least in my opinion, a better layout than something like a bare bones GK61, and you get the extra bells and whistles like the macros, the software, and the USB 2.0 ports on the board. If you plan to do nothing with this board, you just want something compact with arrow keys and you don't want to pay a lot, then by all means, go nuts. If you are interested in this keyboard, I will have an affiliate link in the description as well as a 10% off discount code. So make sure you look at that description and just pick it up and enjoy your new keyboard. Thank you again to LTC for sending this keyboard out for review. Thank you guys for watching, and if you're new, consider liking, commenting, subscribing, and so on. If you want to see more of this stuff, I'll have a couple of videos linked in the end, and you can always just go to the channel and see what there is. There is a lot of keyboard stuff, as well as a lot of non-keyboard related stuff. Just plenty of variety for all to see. Alright, I'm out.